Day of miraculous rescues from under rubble of buildings in Turkey. Following the earthquake that struck last week, 18-year-old Muhammad Kaifa was pulled out. The third rescue this morning, coming 198 hours after. It happened in Adiman province, where rescue workers were seen carrying him strapped on a stretcher, an oxygen mask on his face, and a health worker holding an IV bag. From the site of the collapsed building to await an ambulance, Kaifa could be seen moving his fingers as he was being carried away. And even more rescues 200 hours after the quake hit Turkey and in Syria. 2 women became part of at least 5 survivors rescued today from the rubble. According to the Turkish Defense Ministry, this happening 8 days after the worst earthquake to have ever hit the country in modern history. The women were pulled out from the ruins in the southern city of Hatay. 2 brothers were also pulled alive from the ruins of an apartment block in neighboring Kahramanmaraş province. The death toll has now risen above 37,000. To the Syrian side, 9-year-old Ahmad was rescued. He does suffer some disability, so every time he hears a loud noise, he shouts, "Earthquake." That's his way of coping with the trauma. Scared of spending time at home due to the trauma because of cracked walls within their building, his family has relocated to a makeshift shelter in a school run by UNICEF where psychological first aid is being provided. Toys and activities like dancing, dozens of UNICEF volunteers are helping those children cope with the situation that they're in, especially those who've lost their homes and loved ones, helping them to cope with a traumatic event. According to UNICEF, thousands of children faced on the 6th of February a crisis within a crisis where they continue to face complex situations of displacement, fear, and extremely cold weather. The shelter where Ahmad is one of 200 UNICEF, along with its partners, are operating in Syria. A death toll in Syria is also set to be above 5,000, nearing 6,000 at the moment, including those who died in the rebel-held northwest and government-held areas. Now, London correspondent Juliana Olaika has been on the ground in Turkey since yesterday, giving us an update on the situation there. Here's her report, which she sent in earlier. Viewers have been sleeping near the wreckage of buildings warmed up by blankets and campfire in the southern Turkish city of Antakya after the deadly earthquake hit last Monday. It's one of the deadliest tremors that Turkey has experienced in modern history. Combined with the death toll in Syria, it's now above 37,000. A Turkish toll was 31,643 as of the last count, according to the Disaster and Emergency Management Authority. Turkey's urbanization minister, Murat Kurum, said some 42,000 buildings had either collapsed, were in urgent need of demolition, or severely damaged across 10 cities. Our Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has agreed to allow United Nations aid deliveries to opposition-held northwest Syria through 2 border crossings from Turkey for 3 months at least, according to the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. Mr. Assad agreed to open the crossings of Bab al-Salam and al-Rahi, according to Guterres, after UN aid chief Martin Griffiths met with the Syrian president in Damascus on Monday. Griffiths briefed the UN Security Council of Assad's decision during a closed-door meeting. The move comes just a week after the earthquake struck both countries, that's Turkey and Syria, killing more than 37,000 people. The United Nations already has a Security Council mandate to use the Bab al-Hawa border crossing. It's been using that route since 2014 to deliver aid to millions of people in need in the northwest. The Security Council agreed to the mandates after the Syrian government opposed the measure.
The Syrian government has repeatedly expressed its commitment to deliver humanitarian aid to Syrians wherever they are on the Syrian soil. And I also affirmed that northwest Syria is an integral part of Syrian lands, and that our people there are part of the Syrian people. And Syria will not accept that they be divided based on lines drawn by terrorist armed groups. Based on that, Syria supports the entry of humanitarian aid into the region through all possible cross points, whatever from inside Syria or across the borders, for the period of 3 months, to ensure the delivery of humanitarian aid to our people in the northwestern Syria, which is part of the disaster areas designated by our government. The meeting that took place today in Damascus between His Excellency President Bashar al-Assad and Mr. Martin Griffiths, Under-Secretary General of the United Nations, was positive and constructive, and member of the Council just heard from him about the outcome of this meeting. President al-Assad confirmed the need for urgent aid to enter all regions in Syria, including those under occupation and under control of the armed terrorist groups. He also stressed the importance of the international efforts and focused on helping to rebuild infrastructure in Syria, because this would be an urgent necessity for the stability of Syrian people and the return of Syrian refugees to their cities and regions.
Now, the White House has said the United States is preparing to provide any aid and all aid to earthquake victims in Turkey as well as in Syria. A convoy of 10 trucks crossed into Syria on Sunday, bringing the number of trucks across the border to a total of 52. It is critical the United Nations Security Council approve additional crossings, according to the White House, saying that this would help with the assistance being delivered by other countries. Well, doctors in the field in the southern Turkish city of Iskenderun are treating increasing numbers of patients suffering from post-traumatic stress and panic attacks after last week's devastating earthquake. Indian Army Major Beena Tiwari is part of a team of almost 100 experts from India who established a field hospital to treat survivors after a local hospital was destroyed. Our correspondent Juliana Olaika has been on the ground since Monday, giving us a bird's eye view of the situation in Turkey as concerns the settlement camps. Here's her report.
Straddling Europe and Asia across the iconic Bosphorus Strait, residents of Turkey's largest city are a few miles away from the horror their fellow citizens are enduring in the southeast. People here have their own issues to contend with, like a tanking economy and sky-high inflation, issues that have to be pushed aside for now. Istanbul has become a focal point for the hundreds of aid agencies desperate to offer support. Volunteers have left their lives from across the world and are willing to join the search and rescue missions. Those people are not courting public sympathy.
So as to be expected, it's pretty difficult to get a hold of people, but I've hopped into a taxi because I'm told that some international doctors have set up a makeshift HQ so they can get to some of the disaster zones, which is just about an hour away from this bustling city.
Fortunately, I've stumbled upon the local Doctors Worldwide headquarters. The people leading the rescue teams here are not sleeping, but the work doesn't stop.
Actually, the statistics say that there are 23 million people affected by the earthquake in the region. The area is so big, it's almost the size of France. So the numbers tell a lot about how devastating the earthquake is. As we arrived there, there were teams, research and rescue teams working on the ground with some vehicles, and we saw a lot of like dead people coming from the collapsed buildings. It was so sad, and there are some happy and some like scenes that increase the hope for the future. There were little kids and babies and like elderly people coming out alive, and after even like 100 hours after the earthquake, and even like in longer times, there were people rescued from alive from the collapsed buildings. So it's so difficult for the people who are even like alive in the region, because they are living outside, they are living in tents, they are living in camp cities established by AFAD, a public body. So bad, actually.
Idil Alabey is a young project assistant turned Mammoth project coordinator, supporting senior staff.
We have thousands of volunteer doctors and medical staff here. Also, we have operational teams in there. So it's not enough. It couldn't be enough, but we are trying to reach every out.
So Istanbul may not be the epicenter of the disaster, but it's certainly become the focal point for foreign aid groups, local aid groups, to get together to work to pack essentials that people so desperately need. This room where I'm standing used to actually be a meeting room, but just have a look around me. It's turned into a place where people are sending in medicines, they're sending in clothes, they're sending in food products. We've got lots of young volunteers here working day and night to ensure that the 23 million people who are affected get the help that they so urgently need. Juliana Olayinka, reporting for Channels Television News in Istanbul.